My wife and I rented a house, and last winter our landlord served us notice to vacate the premises, as he had decided to sell the property. My wife was 8 months pregnant and not in any physical state to do anything like pack or move house. I convinced my wife to stay with her mother and said she could apply for houses while I packed and got ready for the move. On the first night my wife stayed with her mother, I stayed up late getting organized. It was about 3 in the morning when I saw a shadow walk past the kitchen window. I should tell you that the kitchen faces into our back garden, which was secure and fenced off, so there was literally no reason for anyone to be in the garden. I turned on the kitchen light in hopes that it scared off whoever was creeping around. I looked outside from an upstairs window, but couldn't see anyone, but I could see faint footprints around the house and in front of the kitchen window. I decided at this point to leave the downstairs light on and try and get some shut-eye, as I was already up later than I intended to be. I went to sleep and heard nothing for the rest of the night. When I woke up in the morning, I found that the back door had been forced open. There was water on the floor, like someone had walked snow into the house and it had melted. I called the police and checked the house, but whoever had broken in had left. It didn't appear that anything was taken from the house, and there was already stuff packed up that they could have easily walked away with. I called the landlord, who sent someone out to fix the back door. He wasn't happy and thought it was something I did to try and get back at him for selling the house from under us. I continued to pack throughout the day and into the night. I can't remember the exact time, but I think it would have been around 11 p.m. when I started hearing noises and what sounded like footsteps coming from the loft. The loft had been converted into an additional bedroom and had a staircase leading up there. It was a door I usually kept locked, and so I hadn't checked it when we had the break-in. But lo and behold, the door was unlocked. I grabbed a baseball bat I had gotten out earlier that day and made my way up into the loft. There weren't many places to hide up there, as we just used it as a spare bedroom when family came from out of town. I looked around and saw that the bed that was previously made now looked like it had been slept in. Then something on top of the wardrobe caught my eye. It was a woman. She screamed and leaped off the top of the wardrobe right at me. I fell backward onto the floor, banging my shoulder on the corner post of the bed. She scratched at my face before running off downstairs and out of the front door. I called the police and made a report. They came and checked the room and found some fingerprints and traces of DNA left in the bed. I didn't recognize the woman and don't know why she broke into the house or targeted our house specifically other than to sleep in the bed. I'm just glad my pregnant wife wasn't home when it happened. Me and my friend were walking home together from a friend's house, who lived on the other side of the suburbs to where we lived. As it was winter, we were pushing each other around in the snow and throwing snowballs at each other. We saw a man unloading some boxes out of the back of his car, and he asked us if we would help him unload, and he would give us $20. "Just bring the boxes into the kitchen. I just need to do something upstairs." Glenn grabbed a box and went inside, and I followed. We did a couple of trips back and forth and stacked the boxes in the kitchen. I went outside to grab the last box, and Glenn shouted to the man that we were done. There was no answer. Glenn shouted again and went to the bottom of the stairs, and I followed. As he shouted up, we heard a woman screaming for help. We were only 14 at the time and didn't know what to do. The man came running to the top of the stairs, wielding some kind of long knife. We ran out of the house and ran home, which was only a couple of blocks away. Glenn came straight to my house with me as it was closer, and we told my mom, who called the police. The police attended the man's house, and to our surprise, he let them in to search the house voluntarily, and they found no one else there, and that there were no signs of a struggle. The police came back to tell me and my friend about the seriousness of wasting police time. My mom looked really angry with us both, and assured the officers that we would be punished. He said he had been watching a horror movie, and that was the scream we heard, and claimed to know nothing about the knife. He said we were angry because when he went to pay us for helping him, we demanded $20 each and not to share. I know we did not both imagine that scream and him coming running to the top of the stairs with a knife. About a week later, Glenn and I were walking past the house and saw a for sale sign in the garden. We never saw him again, and we'll never know what happened to the woman who screamed for help. My shift would typically end at 8 p.m., but sometimes I did overtime if it was busy for the extra cash. I worked at a local independent coffee shop. As there was a music hall across the street, we would stay open late on gig nights, as this would help with takings and the tips were always good. Getting home after overtime was a more significant challenge. This happened in November of 2019, and that year there was severe snowfall. I lived with my parents, approximately 3 kilometers away from the coffee shop, and had to ride my bike home after work through the snow and sludge. Though our coffee shop had a pleasant ambiance throughout the day, it would get creepy toward closing time. Many of the staff members reported hearing strange noises and screaming coming from somewhere in or around the building. It was a relatively safe neighborhood, but there was some project housing not too far away, which brought the area down a bit. We had been so concerned with the screams that we'd even called the police once or twice, thinking someone was in trouble. But by the time they arrived, the screaming would stop, and the officers would leave without any proper investigation. I tried to find another job on several occasions, but couldn't really find anywhere within cycling distance of my home, as I didn't yet have my driver's license. This one night, I was closing the store on my own, as my colleague Lindsay had left early, as she was back first thing in the morning to open. As I was banking the day's takings into the safe, I heard someone enter the shop. I came back out of the office to see who was there, but I couldn't see anyone. I checked the front door, and it was locked. I returned to the office, but then I heard it again. The door slammed shut, and either someone entered or went out. I checked again, but there was no one out there. I was freaked out, and my heart was beating fast, so I decided to just leave and text Lindsay to tell her I hadn't done the banking. I turned off the lights, grabbed my keys and bike, and left the store. As I got outside, I saw a small boy, maybe 5 or 6 years old, standing at the end of the street. I called to him, and he ran off down the alley that went round to the back of the shop. I ran after him, as it didn't appear as though anyone was with him. When I got to the alley, I couldn't see him. The alley was a dead end, so there was nowhere for him to go. As I slowly walked in, thinking he was maybe hiding behind some bins or something, I noticed the back door to the coffee shop was open. I was confident I had locked it, and as I slowly approached, I heard footsteps behind me. 2 men grabbed me and tried pulling me into the shop door. I dropped to the floor, trying to make it harder for them to pull me inside, but one of the men pushed my head to the floor and started pushing snow in my face and mouth so I couldn't breathe. Eventually, I got tired, and they were able to overpower me and pull me into the shop. Once in the shop, they tied me up, blindfolded me, and threw me to the floor. My heart was beating fast, and I had all kinds of thoughts of what they were going to do to me going around my head. I assured them I would cooperate, and they could take whatever they wanted. They took all the money they could gain access to, and some expensive equipment, and then they left me on the floor, locked inside the shop. I spent all night laying on the floor, tied up and freezing cold. I had gotten wet in the snow, and as the floor was tiling, it didn't really hold the heat too well. I was found the next morning when Lindsay came in to open up for the day shift. Lindsay called the paramedics and police, who took me home and took a statement from me. They never caught the people who did this.